Hello everyone, my name is Corinne and this is Witchcraft WI. Here is my tutorial for how to make this Triforce Zelda Wreath with a little light up navy. We're going to get right into it, but before we do that, why don't you subscribe to my channel to see future tutorials and my one past tutorial that I've got up so far. To start out, you'll need a 12-inch grapevine wreath, these little triangular jewelry sorting dishes that you find at like the jewelry section. I like to use one of these Christmas ornaments that comes in 2 halves, but you could just use a clear one and cut it in half. Some fairy lights, some iridescent heat transfer vinyl, some gold jump rings, specifically 6 of them, and some paints. You'll also need some wire, not specifically this kind, that's just what I had lying around, and of course some flowers and greenery. You're also going to need some pliers, a drill, some drill bits, your iron, and of course a hot glue gun. And if I forgot anything, which I probably did, I'll bring it up later. First things first, we're going to start out with our Triforce. So you'll get out those little jewelry sorting dishes, and you're going to drill a hole in each point of each triangle. And once that is done, you're going to spray paint them gold, and then get out your jump rings. Though right now you technically only need 3 of them because we are just making the Triforce shape itself. We're not actually going to attach it yet. So you're just going to take those jump rings and attach those 3 triangles together. And then once that is done, we're going to set it off to the side and work on something else. Because there's not a lot to say actually while this is happening, I'm just going to let you all know that I actually had this video recorded and edited for like a month. But life just got in the way. I have an 18-month-old daughter and got sick for like the 4th time this year, so I just didn't get a chance to record this voiceover until now, so that's why it took me so long. So if you're a little clumsy and heavy-handed like me, at this point you may have scuffed this up a little bit while you were doing this. You can always just give it a little once-over again with the spray paint. So next we're going to work on our fairy. In my heart of hearts, mine is Nabby from Ocarina of Time, but yours can be just a fairy. That's okay too. So first, you're going to take your Christmas ornament, either again this one that comes in 2 halves like that, or just a clear plastic one that you can cut in half. And you're going to take some sparkly paint, not the specific one that I have, just any old sparkly paint that you like, and you're going to paint the inside of the ornament. I kind of took that paint and went from the center and did sort of like spirals outward from the center. That is the way I find that gives like the best coverage. So after I did the sparkly paint, I did end up doing a layer of mica powder inside of mine. You don't have to do that. I just kind of thought of it and was like, hey, I'm going to see how that looks. And I liked it. So that just added a little extra layer of sparkliness and just a little bit more like white opaque to it as well. This is one that I did just with sparkly paint and white paint. Also looks totally fine. You don't have to go out and buy mica powder. I just had some and thought, hey, what the heck? I'm going to try that. And it did end up adding some additional shininess to that inside part, as well as kind of filling in some spots where that white just needed a little bit extra. So now that we've got that done, you can set that off to the side to dry, and we're going to attach our Triforce to the inside of our wreath. So this is the part where you're going to need those jump rings that we have set off to the side. So I kind of do my best to orient it in the center, exactly where I think it's going to go, but this is kind of one of those parts of the process that you just really have to figure out as you go. As you can see, I'm trying to attach it to those parts of the wreath that wind around it, because those tend to be the most secure and the best way to get it as centered as possible. Now you're actually going to see in just a minute here that I was not actually able to keep the Triforce completely centered in this wreath. Those bits of the wreath that wind around that I like to attach it to just didn't quite line up in the ways that I needed them to. So I ended up having to kind of have it more off to one side, which I ended up making the top of my wreath. And I just ended up putting my little fairy down at the bottom to kind of balance things out a little bit better. Here's where you can see what I mean. I like the Triforce to be as pulled tight in the center of the wreath as possible, and it's very loose on that one side, and I just don't like that. So I reattached it in a different spot. I left everything else where it was, but I had to pull it tight, and that's kind of why it ended up a little bit off center like that. But oh well, what can you do? Now we're going to move on to making the wings for our fairy. So you're going to want to cut out pieces that are a little bit longer than what you think you need so that you can make the shape of the wing with a little bit extra hanging off of the end to be able to attach it to the fairy body. So I'm going to be starting out here with the top wing, as you can see from this beautiful reference. And once you've got that shape the way you want it, you're going to twist those two ends together. And then once we've got that twisted together, we're going to grab our iridescent iron-on vinyl. And you want that piece of vinyl to be just the right size to be able to fold it hot dog style over that little wire frame that we made. So you're going to peel the backing off of the vinyl, and as you fold it over your little wing frame, you want to be sure that you leave enough of a border around the edge all the way around the wing, because it needs to adhere to itself on the outside of the wing as well. And you can use parchment paper, or this is actually just some of that like packing paper that comes inside an Amazon package, to act as a barrier between your iron and your iron-on vinyl. And this first little round does not have to be perfect. You're really just getting the vinyl to adhere to itself enough to be able to kind of cut around it so you have a nice smooth edge to work with. So once that's smoothed out enough where there's not any of the raw iron-on like adhesive that's going to stick to your paper anymore, we're going to go in for one more round of ironing. This time we're going to actually want to be sure that everything is completely adhering, so you'll want to go over it until that vinyl is completely adhered to itself, and it's going to be looking really smooth at this point. See, as I pick it up here, you can kind of see that one edge at the top is not quite perfect. It's not quite fully adhered, so I do actually go back in one more time just to be sure that everything is completely stuck together. So once this last round of ironing is done, you'll actually see just how smooth that really is once everything is completely ironed together. And after you've got this done, you're going to go in and you're going to trim around the edge of the wing. But you want to leave yourself enough room around the outside that there is still at least a thin border of completely adhered vinyl around the outside, because you don't want it too close to that wire, because then the wire can start to poke out if there's not enough of a border around it. There, now thank God that's done. Now go ahead and do it a second time because you have to have two wings. But then also don't forget that we're actually going to do it 2 more times, because Navi has 2 little tiny wings on the bottom of the body as well. And you're just going to go through that exact same process, but for those tiny little wings on the bottom. And once we've got all 4 of our little wing pieces done, we are going to attach them to the fairy body that we made earlier. So once those are all done, we're going to grab our body, and you can leave that little hanging spot on the ornament, because, I mean, obviously you can just use it to help attach your little body to the wreath, and it can go up, down, whatever way you want. It really doesn't matter. But what we're going to do is we're going to take one wing at a time and just mark on the body where we're going to drill holes for our wire to go through, because we're going to thread the wire of every wing through it. So this is one that I've finished and have had laying around for a little while. As you can see, I have those pieces of wire threaded through, and then I kind of wind them together just to keep them in place. And of course, it doesn't hurt to look at another reference picture just to kind of show you exactly where you want those wings to be. But once you've got them in place, again, I just took a Sharpie and marked where those wire bits stick off the end, so I know exactly where I'm going to drill the holes and exactly how many holes I need. The two top wings only need 1 hole each, but the way I do the bottom wings, they need 2 holes. And I use my absolute teeny tiniest drill bit that I have for this part, because again, all you're feeding through is just those tiny little thin wires, so you don't need huge holes drilled into that ornament. So I've had a few very kind people on TikTok ask me if I'm going to sell these wreaths, and to be honest with you, probably not. They are one of those projects that is kind of a lot of work, so it's like a bit of a gamble to make something like this that takes so much time and effort when you really don't know if they're actually going to sell, because that's kind of how the game goes sometimes. You think that something's going to sell really well, and it just doesn't. So it's one of those things that I just don't think I want to do. But I'd be happy to teach you guys how to do it, which is exactly why I am. And I don't mean to sound like I don't appreciate people's kind words, because it really makes me feel good when people see things that I make and love them and want to buy them from me. But as a mom right now, it's just one of those things that I unfortunately can't dedicate that much time to. Especially when I have other hobbies that I also love to do that I want to dedicate my very sparse spare time to. You all make me feel so good though when you say those things. Truly, it really means a lot to me. So once we get this last wing in, that's when we are going to take those extra bits of wire that are stuck off the end and trim them down just a little bit, but then we're going to wind them together to hold all those little wings in place. And once you've done that, it should look a little something like this. So at this point, we're going to attach it to the wreath. And this is, again, one of those points of the video where there's not really a whole lot of literal explaining to do. You just kind of have to attach it whatever way makes the most sense. So that's why I leave those wires that attach the wings to the body a little bit long, so I can kind of weave them into my wreath and use them to attach it to the wreath. And you want your fairy lights to be wound up or bunched up in such a way where they're going to fit inside of the body just perfectly. Even though these come wound up, they're a little bit large, so I actually undo them and wind them up smaller so that they'll fit directly inside. And I use wire, like the wire that I use for the wings, and I also have some wreath wire that I use to attach it, just because I want it to be fully removable. Because those little lights that I have in there are not very expensive, they're pretty cheap, so while they have a replaceable battery, I'm not confident that they'll last forever. So I don't want to hot glue it on because I don't want it to be permanent. And at this point, again, because there's not a whole lot of literal explaining to do while I just weave the wire in place to fasten it all onto the wreath, I'll just tell you where I got things. So the little jewelry dishes, I got at the jewelry department, specifically at Hobby Lobby, but I do believe they have them elsewhere. And the same can be said of the Christmas ornament that I use for the fairy body. Don't come at me for Hobby Lobby. It is not my craft store of choice, but it's what's easily accessible to me in my town. And the fairy lights I got in a pack of like, I don't even know, 20 off of Amazon because they're, again, super cheap. And that shiny heat transfer vinyl can be found at any craft store where they have Cricut things, because it's basically generally used to make like t-shirt transfers, but it works literally perfectly for this. And so I made my silent princess out of a lily that I found, again, at Hobby Lobby, but I had to do it a second time because when I filmed it, the first one turned out so bad, I was so embarrassed, so I painted a second one, and I did not film that because I thought it was cursed to like film myself painting. I was like, I simply cannot paint a third one because I didn't really like doing it. But so now at this point, we're just going to attach our greenery to the wreath. I just kind of used whatever I had laying around because I've got so much greenery, like it's not even funny. But so a nice little convenient thing to do to hold the battery pack for your fairy lights is to just take a zip tie and attach it to whatever part of the back of your wreath, just so you can slide that battery pack in and out so that it's not, hanging there, you know, with nothing supporting it, but it's also not like glued onto the wreath either. Again, just so everything can be removable and replaceable concerning those lights. And this part is not 1000% necessary depending on the way you put your Triforce in the center of your wreath, but I do always keep some thick hemp handy just to have something to tie on the top of my wreath to hang it from. I personally like the look of it because my stuff's always a little bit more rustic looking, but you can always use something else if you have a different type of string that you like better. But that is really the final touch. And if you've got some of those little hot glue spider webs dangling off, you can always use a hairdryer or a heat gun on very low settings to get those off. But otherwise, we're done, folks. This is it. Thank you for watching if you stuck around till the end. And like, comment, subscribe. Find me on the other socials at WitchcraftWI. And check out my website for the things I do sell. Thank you again. Bye.